Go.
With great power comes great responsibility, and with great responsibility comes an overwhelming duty to have a clear mind and a moral compass. Great leaders are diverse in their ability to adapt to the ever-changing environment in which they are asked to perform their duties. Hey, my name is Heather Thomas, and I will be discussing the leadership, followership, and ethical dilemmas covered during the movie Crimson Tide. Throughout the movie, I believe that the core leadership style of Captain Ramsey is mainly autocratic. He made it very clear that all decisions were to be made by him and him alone because he was the captain of the boat. There was a very clear distinction between Captain Ramsey and his subordinates. In some ways, he was authoritative, and in others, Captain Ramsey tried to pull rank in order to abuse his so-called power. I stated before that the commander was mainly autocratic, and that was because he did not always use formal rules and regulations to control activities and relationships. Captain Ramsey knew that the rules stated that no missiles were to be launched unless the entire emergency action message had been received, but his decision was not based upon that. The rules and regulations also stated that he was the one in charge, but the commander used that aspect in order to overrule the regulation regarding EAMs abusing his power. The commander also disregarded the fact that the XO was to concur with him in order for a decision to be made. The commander more or less formed a dictatorship in order to get his own way. But the commander was not the only one at fault. The XO had a part in the situation as well. Lieutenant Commander Hunter had a democratic leadership style, which was more than likely what caused the falling out between the two. Hunter was a collaborative leader. He encouraged follower involvement and participation. On multiple occasions, the XO commended the other soldiers for their work and in a sense took pride in them for their accomplishments. He pushed them to be their best because they were the only ones that could do their job. For example, the XO encouraged Webs to do the right thing, to think freely, and to not open the safe in order to save the country because the missiles can't come back. No matter what, the commander and the XO were both productive leaders, thus each had their own ways of doing things. As stated in the end of the movie, they were both right, but they were also both wrong. In my opinion, I would want to emulate a democratic leadership style. Productivity is just as high as being an autocratic leader, but you're not faced with the aggression that comes along with a dictator persona. Like I stated before, democratic leadership is more collaborative. In a sense, the followers believe that they have more of a say-so in what happens to and or around them, making them more willing to perform to the greatest of their abilities. As stated in our textbook, productivity tends to lessen when autocratic leaders are not directly involved, but productivity stays consistent when democratic leaders step out of the picture. I would rather my followers know that they can depend on me when it is needed, but be able to handle situations and make decisions for themselves. The key to being a good leader is knowing when the appropriate time is to step in and change your leadership style. For example, I'm a computer science major, so it's very possible that I could be managing a team of my own in the future. Say, for instance, that my team's job is to create a new database for an app that was just released. I'm a democratic leader, so I allow my team to work together during the requirement documentation phase. Two members do not agree on how the entity relationship diagram should be drawn, so they get into an argument. This would be my chance to step in and be more of an autocratic leader. In this situation, a solution should be delegated rather than agreed upon in order to avoid hostility in the work environment. There are 5 types of followers, most of which were presented in the movie. In my opinion, the most important situation in the movie is one in which the ethical decision to launch the missile or to not launch the missile is at hand. There are 2 different followers depicted in this scene alone. First of all, the chief of the boat is a pragmatist. He adapted to the situation, tried to stay out of trouble, and tried to survive. The chief of the boat wanted to follow the order of the commander at first because of the loyalty in which he had to him. The commander was in charge, and the chief of the boat wanted to abide by the rules and the orders given directly to him, but he was also aware that the rules stated not to launch a missile until the entire emergency action message had been received. The chief of the boat was the one that was faced with the ethical dilemma when asked by the XO to remove the commander and take him to his quarters. He had to make a decision whether to play by the rules or to follow his own self-interest. The chief of the boat had to either remove the commander from his position as ordered by the XO and face the possibility of being charged with mutiny, or follow the orders of the commander and put the entire country at risk. The issue at hand was that both Captain Ramsey and Lieutenant Commander Hunter were being authoritative, and the chief of the boat had to make the decision between his leaders, which would be a hard decision for anyone to make. I do not believe that this was the appropriate leadership style for either Captain Ramsey or Lieutenant Commander Hunter, but it is hard to definitively say if either of them should have changed their leadership style in order to defuse the situation. Technically, they were both right and they were both wrong. The commander was standing firm in his decision to launch the missile within the specified time frame, and he had no intentions of standing down. If the commander had wavered the slightest bit and given in to the XO when he basically stated that he was wrong for following orders given directly by the President of the United States, then he would have lost all credibility and all respect of his subordinates. If the XO had given in and concurred with the commander, then World War III and a nuclear holocaust would have begun because the second emergency action message stated, in fact, not to launch the missiles. The XO would have put his own name on the line if he had concurred with something that he knew was not a complete order, and he would have had to live with the fact that he was the one that put millions of lives in danger. In this situation, the XO was also an effective follower. And being the democratic leader that he was very active. Without a doubt, he was a risk taker because it's not an easy decision to overthrow your own leader. The XO was extremely assertive towards the commander, and he was willing to stand up to him when the appropriate time came. In the movie, there are multiple examples of leaders and followers. Some are good and some are bad. However, not all leaders have a single style of leadership. A good leader knows how to balance one style of leadership with another, because in order to become a good leader, you first have to become a good follower.